Hello, lovely people. This is the first video in a new series for $5 patrons about how to make videos for YouTube. So we're going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2019 version for this tutorial. This first video is going to be the real basics, right? We're going to show you how to start the project, how to bring in audio and video tracks, how to do some really basic transitions and editing, and go from there in future videos. But I thought it was important to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind and we have a good base to work from for any future editing stuff that we make. So now that Premiere has loaded, we can go into New Project and bring this over here, give it a name like Tutorial for YouTube, and don't worry about these settings, these are fine. Now we're into Premiere proper, but before I explain anything, I think it's important to just go straight down to the project window here and go right-click, New Item, Sequence. A sequence is where you put all of your video, audio, images, and is kind of like what you're building towards to be the final video. So we get a bunch of presets. There's not really one that's just kind of like a basic video, so we're going to make one. Let's go into DV, like digital video NTSC, go down to widescreen for 48 kilohertz, and we're going to go over to settings. Now we're just going to change everything. So editing mode, we're just going to change to custom. Our time base, we're going to set to, on YouTube, you kind of can pick between 30 and 60. A lot of stuff on YouTube is 30, but a lot of gaming stuff is 60 because a lot of games run at 60 frames per second, so this will show them properly. It will also make your motion graphics look smoother if you use 60 frames per second. It's just how often it's sort of updating the video with new frames of animation. So we're going to go with 60 for this one. In terms of frame size, let's just set the pixel aspect ratio to square, and our frame size is going to be 1920 by 1080. This is a aspect ratio of 16:9, which is what everyone's computer monitors is, our televisions, a lot of phones, and the YouTube screen itself, not to mention the games that we're playing are generally 16:9. And then the frame size is 1080p, which is nice, it's high quality, it gives you lots of information. You could go smaller to 720p, but that's you're going to lose some visual clarity there. You could go bigger to 4K, but at that point you might struggle to edit it on a computer without it just slowing down, things like that. It's really up to you. This is what I use, is 1080p. Fields, we're going to set to no fields, progressive scan. This stops any weird like interlacing or VSync issues. Don't worry about this. Our sample rate, 48,000 kilohertz or hertz, 48 kilohertz for audio is nice. You could go higher if you were really into audio editing. I don't really know much about that. And the rest is fine. And we could save that preset. We're just going to go OK. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just drag in some of the stuff that we want to use in our video. So over here, this is the folder that I used for the camera episode. And so we've got our footage here. So let's bring in, I want to do the bit about Spider-Man and Vanquish. So let's bring in these Spider-Man clips and these Vanquish clips and drag it over into the project window and just drag it in there. Now we'll just import them. And then we're also going to want to go and get our vocal track. So this is my vocals for the video. Let's just listen to that quickly. Cameras in games are a tricky thing to get right. I mean, you're telling me, Mark. So we're also going to drag that. I made this in Audacity and saved it out as a WAV file. WAV is pretty high quality for audio, so that's going to sound real nice. And so if I double click on Spider-Man, we can see that there's kind of 4 windows in Premiere. You've got this one down here, which is your project. This is like your collection of stuff that you're going to be chucking into the video. Up here is where we're looking at the video in its entirety, the video clips that we've brought in their entirety. So this is like the Spider-Man one. We can kind of just scrub through it. Over here is our sequence. This is what we're going to build. It's our timeline. We've got 3 video clips, 3 video tracks, and 3 audio tracks. We can add more if we want. And then over here is kind of this black box will be filled with our actual final video that we're going to be making. So what we can do is we can just take this camera, Vox, this is our vocal track, and just drag it over into the timeline. So we've got 3 audio tracks to play with. Like I said, you can just add more if you want. Because it's green, it means it's audio, and it means we can't put it in the video area. We're going to put it in audio too. So now we have our audio track in the timeline, and we've got some video clips that we want to put over the top of the audio. And so generally I like to go to my script, which is here, and find the bit that I'm kind of working on. So I've put a highlight here for how Spider-Man becomes very small when you are web swinging to give you more view. And so I'm just going to find that in the audio. So here we go, I found it. So we can just press space to play. Adjustments to your targeting. And other cameras hang back. Spider-Man becomes a tiny weeny critter in the middle of the screen when web swinging. Perfect. So I can use plus and minus to kind of zoom in and out. We can drag this like playhead around and press space to play. So the next thing we want to do is to find a good clip of Spider-Man swinging around, which shouldn't be too hard because this video is literally called Spider-Man swinging around. So let's just take a random clip of, say, here. Yeah, whatever, it's fine. So we're going to go to the sort of starting point of where we want the clip to begin. Again, I'm just using space to play. It might be kind of here. Doesn't really matter too much because we can change this. And then we're going to press I on the keyboard for in. This is the in point of the clip. Play for a little bit longer, maybe scrub forward a little bit and say, you know, we've done some swinging for a bit now, so we're going to hit O, which is the O point. And so we've just kind of selected this one chunk of the video. Now there's two ways to bring that video over onto the timeline. If we click and drag from the whole picture like this, it will bring both the audio and the video, which is maybe what we want to do. Or we can go from this video clip icon and just bring the video. I personally would recommend always bringing both because then you've always got them to play with. You could hit mute on this track and then it's not actually playing the audio, but it's there if you need it later. It's much harder to sync up audio and video later than it is to do it when you first drag it in. So check this out. It's now in our timeline, we just press space. And other cameras hang back. Spider-Man becomes a tiny weeny critter in the middle of the screen when web swinging to give you the best possible view of where you're going. And the camera... So that works nicely. And then I say... And the camera holds back a bit. So now we're talking about Vanquish. So we can use, when we've got the clip like this, if we go to the ends of it, we see these red lines, red arrows, which we can use to then like drag in more of the clip or get let rid of some of it. So we're saying we want it to go to this specific point here. I like to have the audio, you know, say a little bit of the audio. So otherwise you get this weird thing where it's like cutting in between sentences. It doesn't sound quite as good as if we let it say like, and the camera, and then to the rest of that sentence, then we go to Vanquish. So in this bit I say, let's go back to the script. It says, and the camera holds back a bit in Vanquish when you rocket slide to increase the sense of speed. And so for this, let's look at this bit where I say rocket slide. And maybe what we could do is we go into Vanquish and we find a bit where I'm rocket sliding. Okay, here we go. So we're going to pause it just as I start rocket sliding and press I, and then do O. And then on my audio clip, we'll find the bit where I say rocket slide. In Vanquish, when you rocket slide. So when you rocket slide and drag the audio clip here and then pull it back. So what we'll get is this thing where I'm just sort of talking about Vanquish and then I say back a bit in Vanquish when you rocket slide to increase this. So as I say rocket slide, he starts rocket sliding. Really nice like mix there. And so, I mean, that's, you know, the real basics there is literally just putting down clips. But you could imagine just repeating this process 100 times and filling out the entire timeline. I won't do that on this tutorial, that'd be really boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of transition stuff now. So let's just get rid of some of this audio. And to do this, let's use the razor tool, which is the C key. And then we can kind of just click on a track like this, on this green one, which is our vocals, and just cut it. And then we can like delete this bit. And we'll do the same at the beginning as well with a cut. It just kind of cuts the video down to get rid of excess stuff. So this is just the video we're making now. It's a very short Game Maker's Toolkit video about Spider-Man and Vanquish. And then what we can do is, let's say we want to have, in this Vanquish clip, I'm talking and the audio for Vanquish is playing very quietly, and then after I finish, it sort of, the audio comes back up to a normal level, so we can kind of see this explosion. So what we want to do is we're going to unmute audio 1, and we're going to drag this down to see a bit more, and we'll see this line. And this line represents, this white line represents the volume of this clip. So higher is louder, lower is quieter, all the way down to minus infinity decibels means silent. So we'll have it in the middle for now. And then we use the pen tool, or P key. And from here, we can put down these little dots. So if we put a dot after I finish speaking, and one couple seconds later, we can then move these dots around. So if we take this first one, we bring it down. So it means while I'm speaking, the volume of Vanquish is very low.
Back a bit in Vanquish when you rocket slide.
You can just about hear it. And then this one we bring up a little bit, or keep it down to 0, whatever. But now it means so while I'm talking, it's very quiet. Then it ramps up in speed until it's quite loud. So we've got this nice thing where it's not going, you can hear what I'm saying, but then we go back to the audio from the game to kind of, for a nice sort of end to this clip. And that's kind of cool, but it just sort of ends. That's not very nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into effects. And we've got here a bunch of different effects we can use. The ones we're interested in at the moment are audio transitions and video transitions. So if we look at the audio transitions, we've got crossfade, there's only 3. Constant power is kind of Premiere's default, it's the one I use. And we just drag it on here. And what it means is it's just going to fade out the audio. So it sounds like this. So it's less of a dramatic cut. And in terms of the video, you can do the same thing, which would be video transitions, dissolve, cross dissolve, and that fades the video out. We can make the fade longer. Sorry, if we zoom in and we grab this cross dissolve and bring it back, now it'll take a bit longer. But the thing we might want to do is we might want to cut the video when the explosion happens, but then have the audio keep going for a little second. To do this, we're going to go right click and go unlink. This means now the video and audio are not linked together, so we can move them independently. So let's get rid of that cross dissolve, and maybe at the point of the explosion, like there, we'll cut the video like this, which we can just drag it back, or we could use the razor tool, whatever. But the audio is still going to go on for a second, so it sounds like it looks like this. That's kind of like a classic GMTK edit, really. There, the video just cuts on a really dramatic moment, but the audio goes for a couple seconds and then fades out. Nice. You can also use transitions between 2 clips. Let's just drag Spider-Man's audio down a little bit, and then let's put a maybe like a wipe with, say, just a general wipe between these 2 clips like this, so we can do it at the end of one or the beginning of one another, or over 2. So this is now going to wipe the video like that. Kind of a little bit lame. It's a bit like a sort of Star Wars wipe from the 70s. But then we can also click on the wipe and do some tricks with it. So if we go click on this wipe and then go up to effect controls up here, we get the stuff for the wipe. So we can say, for example, make a border, like a really thick border like this, and make it white. And then it might be quite cool for like a comic book video. If you had like, you're talking about Batman and Spider-Man, that kind of looks like comic book panels. Yeah, it's quite nice. And that effect controls is really powerful, because what we might want to do is maybe we want to like zoom in this video. Maybe we want to have Spider-Man really close in the center of the screen. Kind of goes against the whole point of this, what I'm saying, but it doesn't matter. So we just click on Spider-Man, and we've got these effect controls now for Spider-Man. And so we can see we've got like the video effects. So under motion, we've got the position. This is the horizontal position. This is the vertical position. This is the scale, obviously. Size. We've got rotation. Woo! Anchor point. Don't worry about that. And then opacity, we can make it opaque. We can do masks, but that's for a future one of these. And we also get our audio effects. Time remapping is also for the future. And then so we might want to just like have the scale come in quite a bit like this. Obviously, if you're scaling up footage, then you're going to be losing quality, because the original video was 1080p and now you're like making each pixel bigger, so it's just going to look a bit mucky and gross. So use that wisely, use it sparingly, I'd say. But what we might find is, say, in this clip, Spider-Man goes off the top of the screen here. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to want to do is make an animation where the video moves over time. So we're going to go to a bit where he's on screen like this. And then up here in the video effects, under position, we're going to click on this stopwatch icon, which means like start the animation. And it's saying at this point, up until this point, keep the position at 960 by 540. 960 by 540 is half of 1920 by 1080. That's just the default, right in the middle of the screen. And then as he goes off the screen like this, we're going to move the video down, which is the vertical one here, down like this. And what we can see is in between these two keyframes, these are called, it's going from 960 by 540, and the 540 is automatically going up to whatever we set it to, 750. And then maybe, it's kind of fine actually as it is. So then what happens is on the video over on here, you can see Spider-Man goes up and then the frame kind of moves to make sure it doesn't go off the screen. Nice. And then it cuts over to Vanquish. And so, kind of a weird saying some settings, but that is kind of basic type of editing stuff you might do in a YouTube video. And that's kind of really it. So let's just finish off by exporting it. So we're going to put an in point at the beginning and an out point at the end, like this. And then we're going to go File, Export Media. Make sure you're clicking in the sequence before you export, because you might end up exporting the original videos, which are useless. We've got our output here, and we can see that we've gone for sequence in-out, so it's just the in and out point, so all this blank space is not being captured, it's just this bit of Spider-Man and Vanquish. In terms of our sequence settings, you want to be on H.264, which is just good encoding format for YouTube. Match source means that it's taking the same stuff that we did at the beginning, the 1080p, the 60 frames per second, the square pixels, and the high bit rate means it's just high quality. We can click on this output name and call it like, tutorial video.mp4. Let's also choose where we output it. And we can we don't really need to play with these because it's already done matching the source. The thing you might want to play with is this bitrate setting. So by default it's 10, kind of low. Bitrate is just how much information is in each frame. The higher the bitrate, the more high quality your video will be, but also the bigger the file will be. And ultimately YouTube will just compress the crap out of it anyway, so don't worry too much. But if you are specifically doing a video with on a game with loads of explosions, loads of confetti, things like that, you might want a higher bitrate to make sure that the video doesn't just become this sort of compressed mush. And if you're doing, say, like a trailer for your video, you're going to want to have it in the highest possible quality, but the video is only going to be like 2 minutes long. If you're doing like a 2-hour analysis video, you can set the bitrate down lower so it doesn't take 8 years to export it. 10's fine for me. And then, yeah, we're just going to hit export. And now with that exported, we can just open it up in Finder. So we just go into editing tutorial video, and just watch it. And other cameras hang back. Spider-Man becomes a tiny weeny critter in the middle of the screen when web swinging to give you the best possible view of where you're going. And the camera holds back a bit in Vanquish when you rocket slide to increase the sense of speed. And so there you have it. That's actually almost like a real episode of Game Maker's Toolkit there, just without some of the more fancy editing. But if you don't want any of that in your video, those tricks should be more than enough to get you started, get you a video on YouTube, and you can go from there. But I will be back in the future with additional videos with more tips and tricks on more advanced stuff. So look forward to that. Thanks for watching. Hope it was somewhat useful, and I'll see you in the future.